we would be in a better position to do that as a city than to rely on Fire District 1.
Well, I mean, from the report I saw, 74% of the calls are inside the city of Gardner. So, in my opinion, that was always a bad deal. We gave it away. We said take over payments. We'd certainly built up some equity in the building, having paid down the debt, and certainly, I guess, probably had some remaining lease on the ladder truck. So we should have gotten something in return for that. And I wasn't on the council then, but I did think it was a good idea, and I think it was a fire sale at that time. Because
fun.
What's that?
Pardon the
oh
fun.
yeah, I mean, but it was. I mean, that was probably the worst economic time we had, and as I recall, we were selling buildings, giving away fire departments, quite a few things to make ends meet. So not a good position of strength to negotiate from.
I would just like to consider all the other approaches. We have some time to do it now. We've locked in fire protection contracts for the next year.
So what would you suggest, Cheryl? Not to put you on the spot here.
It's very, very difficult to make a recommendation on which way we should handle this without looking at it to see, the service, the cost, what the options are, and what they would cost.
My thing is that we have 3 years of empirical data now that's been provided to us, we've got in the can to see how the arrangement is working, and that would be a good baseline to work off of.
Well, you've got a year to research, right?
So
Is that what you're looking for, Steve, or are you wanting something more than that?
I'm looking for a study. I'm looking for and obviously, we've got other priorities that may make that, I don't know if we can put a timetable to it, but I'd like to see us sometime in the next fiscal year before we have to look for a renewal of the existing contract, where we can look at other opportunities or approaches for fire protection.
It's going to be less than a year because you'll have to do it in time
Budget.
for budget.
Yeah,
Budget.
we would need to, right.
You're talking about maybe,
6 months, 5 months.
that's the long end.
No,
Yeah.
because
It'd
we
be
would,
more like 4.5.
April,
Yeah.
I was going to say, April, May is when we're going to start.
What's the feasibility of
The-
potentially building a study group to do this?
Well, it's the study, and then it's the cost, and looking at being able to get those costs factored into the budget.
Yeah.
You might be able to get the study completed of what your options are. I don't know that you could get those costs factored in, particularly if you're talking about you want the city to consider doing it. You need assets,
Sure.
very expensive assets that we would need to be looking at in terms of capital projects, debt, to be able to acquire those assets if that's the direction that the governing body would like to go.
Well, we know we've got Fire Station 2 is now in the possession of Fire
Right.
District 1, and that's the big one, along with the
You
Bronxville.
have no stations.
And is Station 1 also in that agreement as well?
I believe we gave away all the stations. We
Well,
gave
the
away all,
only other station you had was police
The police,
department, but
okay.
we're not going to put
No,
any
the-
money into it. Oh, that wasn't ours.
the,
That wasn't-
that
that
wasn't
wasn't
ours?
anyway.
Okay, that's
We
not
gave
it.
away Station 2 up by the
Okay.
clock
Yeah.
tower. Well, we didn't give it away, we had them buy it. Or
We had them assume the debt,
Yes, they had.
but the
Okay.
equity that we had built up and the payments that we had made up at that point was also lost when we made that
They
transfer.
took the debt.
Yeah,
That station is no longer yours, and you also don't have any fire trucks.
that's correct, because the Bronto and all the ladder trucks are now in the possession of Fire District 1.
Maybe it would be a good idea to have our attorney review the contract that made that all happen, see if there are loopholes or some invalidity in that as well. What do you think?
Okay.
I think that...
I'm not sure.
It matters
All right.
if there's something improperly
Okay.
done, I think.
That's all.
Well, what's consensus of council on?
What do you want to do?
I think it's something
What do you want to do?
that's certainly relevant to look at as a conversation. I'm not certain that we can do so in time for 2015. I think it'd actually be better to look at it as a 2016 solution.
Potentially.
Because 4.5 months, I don't think will be enough time to do the due diligence that would be necessary and put kind of an undue burden on staff in that
No,
time with
I
other
understand.
irons in the fire. So I think looking at it again, but looking at it as per 2016 and giving us an opportunity to thoroughly vet it through and get the best information possible would be the way I think it'd be best to do it.
And I'd be in favor of that, but let's start the process sometime next year so that we can not be in this position where we only have 4.5 months.
Understanding that's the directive.
Along the lines of budget being accomplished for 2015,
Yep.
that would probably give us, well, that would give us 4 months in 2014 and another 4 months in 2015 before we get to critical mass on budget.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that? Okay.
Thank you.
Can we, Steve, put it on your calendar, but, I mean, you know, Cheryl and Laura, if you want to make a note to double back with us after budget, the next budget season, we'll get that looked at. Anybody else have something for Stan?
I just had one question, I guess, of Laura. Do the expenditures that we get, those also include all of the electric utility expenditures? I know the ones that are crossed out, but those are only a minor portion of, I mean, those are like credit card receipts. I mean, I read through those as well, and it can't be everything.
It's not, because they
It's
have a
not. We
separate
don't approve.
listing.
I think we need to start including those to see, I mean, I'm not gonna be in favor of approving expenditures if it's beyond the scope of what a director has spent. I'm not gonna stick my neck out on that. So, can you identify those expenditures and include them in the, I mean, if they can't budget, then we should not be approving expenditures that they've made. And I'm not, I mean,
Well,
and we need to know, I think as a council, I don't want to stick my neck out and write a blank check. So why don't we can start including those and then maybe identify which ones are attributable to the electric utility so we can keep us all legal, even if those who don't want to.
well,
Thank
part of the, you do bring up a very good point. I would like to see us reevaluate the purchasing, the city purchasing policy. I think it's due for an overhaul, and I think that we need to be able to, in a discretionary way, increase the limits for department heads, including the city manager or city administrator, so that they have the resources to be able to do their jobs.
Okay.
I think we've discussed that before, so.
Okay. Yeah, if we can get back to Larry's point, I mean, as I stated earlier, and I don't know if you were here I don't think you were here for this part of it, we haven't been reviewing their expenditures, because, as it turns out,
They review them.
well, no, they don't. 12.826 establishes a procedure by which utility bills and expenses are paid requiring either city council or staff approval, or the payment of such expenses and bills and the procedures described by the city. The EUB ordinance at section 3A does not require city approval of any expenditures by the EUB and authorizes the EUB at section 4I to establish its own purchasing policy. As it turns out, and I know you've been to a EUB meeting before, but I've been to several, and I've never seen review and approval of expenditures in the past, but considering we're working with a document that is invalid in so many ways, I'm not sure that approving these through the city council is violating this particular ordinance.
Again, the ordinance
Ryan?
doesn't matter, so put the receipts in front of us, and I'll just be voting them all down from here on out if they have anything that violates the standard purchasing authority that's documented in our policy manual, which is established by an ordinance. I mean, I'm not gonna,
Is this something that we can do, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, to the extent that the ordinance is inconsistent with Kansas law, it's ineffective, and so the Kansas statute would control.
You know, I'm in favor of doing this as well. I'm probably not going to be like Larry and vote against anything that's not part of the city policy, but I would like to see them.
and
Anybody?
have them identified,
Yeah.
so we know which ones are,
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. We can make that